Hello everyone, how you guys doing? How are we today in this fine evening or morning or afternoon or in the middle of the night, depending on where you're from? What's going on, everyone? It's yours truly, carrying the ZBrush tea, coming to you live directly from Germany. How's everyone doing? Go check the chat. There we go. We got some people here. It's last minute. I promoted it last minute. Sorry for you if you're just tuning in after the fact, potentially. You probably saw the link in my Instagram to this stream a little bit after the fact, but that's okay, because if you have any questions, you know where to find me, you know. So today I thought we would go back to the root of the matter here, where it all began with our little environment art workshop series. And we've been doing hard surface in the last couple of streams. We've done a wheel with a rim, with a tire, all using live booleans. Go check it out if you haven't. Go watch the last two streams from this series. And today I thought, why not just go back to the roots and go back to the root of things, meaning, whoops, wrong one. That one though. Whoops. Why the heck is this not showing me the correct screen here? It's interesting. Might need to change a few things here. Give me just a second, guys. There we go. Mucho mejor. There we go. Voila. There's ZBrush. And what I thought of today is, because I'm already building a little bit of an environment for demo purposes and for shows and etc. I thought, why not just include that little task that I have with our ZBrush live streams. And I've started already, obviously, this little project of us by well, obviously gathering reference, and I've gathered specific reference just for this stream, but I have a whole, I don't know, like what, 5 boards on Pinterest or something. And also blocking out the base scene and the base modular kit, right? I can also detail that little process in a later stream maybe, but that is beyond the scope of what we're doing over here. Hello. So I've done that, which is this little thing over here that you're seeing. It's the beginnings of my humble and very simple modular kit. I'm using Cinema 4D for this, and this is rather a novelty for me, I have to be honest. I'm not a Cinema 4D expert, I'm a ZBrush expert, but I have extensive Maya experience and extensive Unreal Engine experience, meaning that I'm basically using this as an opportunity as well to learn Cinema 4D, right? And to learn how to do certain things with Cinema 4D, especially considering that we've just launched our new fancy pantsy UV editor in Cinema 4D. So, oh, there's Nightbot. I thought he didn't show up for my last stream. I didn't see him. So, we have a couple of things already done here. As you can see, we have a tileable wall asset working over here. I actually have this pseudo textured in Substance, just so I tested a few things in my Unreal Engine project. You know, some material stuff, shader, like vertex painting, mesh painting with nanite, that kind of stuff. But in this scenario, what I'm using is I created a bunch of rocks. I created an IMM brush. I created a nano mesh plane with a bunch of these rocks just scattered. And then I go in and manually place them. And I have this little basically cube over here, which I sculpted by hand using very basic clay tubes brush with this alpha over here. And some different strokes, some different alphas to just create this little mortar in between the little rocks. So I'm still thinking this looks good on a very rough wall, but for a castle wall, meaning if it's a cleaner surface, right, it's gonna need another layer, right? Castle walls used to be built in layers. You have the core, rubble core, right, which has rubble, plaster, mortar, all mixed in. And then you have your bricks, or in our case, our little stone wall that you see on the surface. And then sometimes you have a little bit of a plaster covering. And in other cases, you have other layers in front of that. But we're going to stick to something really, really simple. We're going to do this little wall, which we already done, and I have some array mesh tiling previews here that allows me to preview what it looks like once it's tileable. You can notice a little bit of that repetition here and there, but it's not too crazy. And obviously we can break up that repetition in the actual texturing stage, right? Now, we also have a few assets that are going to be part of another texture, which is going to be the Sculpt Atlas. Now, everything that I'm trying to communicate here is stuff that is pretty standard workflow in AAA, right? And not just AAA, overall game art production. This is going to be a couple of assets that mixed in with modular pieces, and well, they're still modular. It's just that they're uniquely sculpted, right? This is just a preview of a wall, just so I can sculpt the window sills, the window sides, and then have this, I can compose different sized windows and different sized arches and etc. Right? Same thing goes for this pillar base. So the actual pillar itself is going to be part of a trim sheet, but this, for example, this could be sculpted, right? And this could be then repeated, and this is using array mesh to just scale it down, right? So I'm trying here to keep everything that I sculpt here onto the same texture set. This is for performance reasons, to reduce draw calls, right, within your scene. Now, the idea is, let's say we have this little arch here, over here, right? And we could end up with a trim sheet here, a sculpt atlas here, including the keystone, and the tileable wall material. That's 3 material IDs already for a single model, which is the absolute limit that I've established in the TechArt documentation for this project. The absolute limit for any modular piece is 3 material IDs, and that is, it has to be a special model, such as an archway or a destroyed version of a wall or something like that. Keeping that in mind, that also means that I'm going to extract a couple of these rocks and also a couple of the other rocks that we're going to build, the limestone rocks, and I'm going to pack them into a trim sheet at the bottom. So we're going to create a trim sheet that is a hybrid trim sheet. That's what it's called in the industry. A hybrid trim sheet is a mix of tileable strips and baked assets, or some sort of texture at the bottom that then all you need to do is overlay a shell of your UVs on top of, like, let's say the caps of wooden boards, for example, or wooden planks, or that's the most obvious one, but there's more, right? In our case, we're going to do single rock bakes, and then we're going to use that 3D model to compose the scene. Let's say on this damaged wall over here that we have. This is obviously a very basic block out of a damaged wall that's convex and concave. I don't know if I'm getting those two right. I confuse those two all the time. And then what we're going to do, and anything that's purple that you see over here is going to be part of the trim sheet. Anything that's this bluish kind of tone is the tileable texture, one of them, doesn't matter what it is. And anything that's this green color, it's going to be sculpted. So a sculptable, in our case for this arch over here, we just need to sculpt half of the arch. And then this bottom section, I can actually model a couple of pillars or something and use either the trim sheet or a sculpted part of it. Same thing goes for this windowsill and the window sides. This is going to be a trim sheet, but it's going to be a separate trim sheet we're going to make just for wooden and metal parts, such as this metal gate over here and wooden structures along our little castle, right? All right, so I remember it because the word cave is one of them. That's one of the one that goes inward. Caves, concave. Oh, that's a good one. That's a good trick. Oh my god, I love that. I love you already. Look at that. Look at you trying to fix my ADHD and dyslexia all at once. Remembering a word via the word cave, concave goes inwards. That's amazing. That's genius. That's absolutely genius. Thank you, Vivir. I'm sorry if I'm butchering it, but thank you so much. That's amazing. Wow. You know, I really enjoy those little tricks. Concave goes inwards. That's perfect. Look at that. So this is concave, right? This would be, whoops, lazy. This would be a concave destroyed wall. Obviously just the block out. And this would be a convex destroyed wall. Great. So this is obviously the base that we started with. Just a big window, small window with different proportions. Just a regular door gateway. Then we built a wall, and then we built a little bit of a complex model here. And this is the trim section. Obviously this also is also trim. This could be a trim as well. And then everything that's other than that, it's bluish. It's gonna get the tileable wall. Also, you can see that I have a lot of geometry here that is technically not needed, right? I get this a lot from people who are used to just baking high poly, low poly, high poly, low poly. This is used particularly in AAA titles to enable vertex painting in a modular kit. Vertex painting meaning if you have a layer of destruction or a different material, a different material layer. Let's say I have this tileable texture that we're going to build, and then I have sections that is dug in and you can see the exposed plaster or something, or you have a little bit of moss or dirt leaks or something like that. You're going to use the topology the vertices, or the vertices, sorry, to actually paint RGB colors, and each one of those channels is going to be assigned to a different layer. Let's say the red channel is a variation, maybe a destroyed-ish variation of that brick wall. And the green channel could be the dirt leaks or something like that, dirt, moss, whatever. More of a worn version of that. And then the blue channel could actually be just dug up, you know, destroyed sections of the wall. I usually keep it to a very consistent. R is variation, green is dirt leaks, whatever, the wear and tear. And then B is usually moisture, right? So it's cheaper to do as well in Unreal. So that sort of thing. And this is basically where we end up with. I have a couple of like big assets here. This is obviously for a corner of the wall, of the big castle wall. This is obviously for a tower. And I just wanted to use this for testing. Also testing a couple of different features in Cinema that allows us to fracture an asset while preventing destroying the UVs, right? So I can keep the UVs of this outer face, meaning I can keep my tolerable texture UVs, and the interior could be, let's say, part of a trim sheet that is the granite, the exposed granite, or the exposed limestone, destroyed limestone. This is a very cool and quick way to just create very quick destroyed versions of your assets. So this is the sort of thing that I've been exploring outside of my ZBrush time, obviously. But it's pretty cool, pretty exciting. I'm new to this. I'm very, very new to Cinema 4D in terms of like as an artist, right? I've obviously been a consultant internally for the development of Cinema 4D when it comes to, you know, like what is the game art workflows and all of that. But yeah. Yeah. Boa tarde aqui no Brasil. Boa tarde aqui na Europa. Well, eu iria dizer boa tarde aqui em Portugal, mas eu estou na Alemanha, portanto. I've lately been using ZBrush a lot for environments, and it's fun. Yeah, that's the thing, right? It's a niche market. It's not as niche as most people think. A lot of studios use ZBrush for environments, for environment art. Obviously, you don't build your entire environment in ZBrush unless you're doing something like a collectible, right? A diorama or something like that. But you build the assets in ZBrush, and there's a lot of stuff that people are missing for this. So for our trim sheet, I'm gonna plan this out, and you guys, by now, you probably know how it goes. I use ZModeler with a basic plane to just plan it out. This is gonna be our section where we're gonna bake a little rocks and the limestone blocks, right? This could be a section either for exposed granite. I'm still thinking if I'm gonna do that, or if I'm gonna actually have a separate mesh, like so. See, like, and then just model it out to have the exposed, let's say the exposed foundational, like, rubble core, right? Or I could do a little bit of both, and I could have that as a separate mesh. And then if I wanted another destroyed version, let's say here in the middle, I have a hole, let's say a cannon ball just was shot at the wall, and you can literally just cut a bunch of things here, like just cut geometry around this area to expose the interior core, which could be just a plane technically, and displace it with nanite, and then you get that fake geometry kind of effect. And we can explore that at a later point as I'm evolving with this little project. So first of all, I have a little bit of a list of trims here that I am going to have to build. So we're going to have basically our arch blocks, right? So we have drain edge, we have chamfers, we have decorative groves. And I could actually start with the decorative groves. I'm going to look at actual drawings from architects, of Romanesque architects and medieval architects here. And there we go. We have a little bit of a reverse trim here. I'm using a Pure Ref here on the side just to take a look at these trims here. We have a little flowery pattern, something like this. And then we have more straightforward patterns like this. And then we have some images over here. And actually, I think I'm missing one of them. I'm actually missing one of these patterns over here. I had a pattern saved. Did I save it? Maybe I didn't. Maybe I didn't save it. Let me check. Yeah, well, this could be, again, this is 3 meters. I can actually just delete all of this and show you guys what I mean. So I can go over here under geometry. Let me see if I can. By the way, is the music too loud or anything like that? Do you barely hear the music like last time? Or am I mistaken here? Maybe I am. So let me go to ZModeler. Actually, not ZModeler. I can go over here to Edge Loop and change, delete loops, go partial. Actually, go delete, not groups. And there we go. And with my ZModeler, I'm going to go and say, this is half, meaning if this is a 4K texture, that's 2 meters. This is 1 meter, right? According to my textile density, obviously. And now this is basically our 1 meter threshold for baking. And this is another meter that I can have either for granite or for, and I can switch back and forth actually. So I'm gonna actually paint these two. And now this, I know that this is half, it's 2 meters, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually go to multiple edge loop and I'm gonna do 9. So this will be 20 centimeters each, right? So I can do that. And then I could just do this and then select that, go auto groups. Polygroups, auto groups, same thing goes for this. Whoops, actually for this, auto groups. And now we have different polygroups for each one. If this is 2 meters, this is divided by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. If it's divided by 10, that's 20 centimeters for each one of these little rows, which, thinking about that, if we just delete half of it, that's 40 centimeters, which is a little more of a, I don't have a ruler here or anything, but I guess like 20 centimeters would be like that high, which is not that big for a trim, right? For a medieval trim. So what we can do is we can have a couple of them that are, whoops, that's too much. We can have a couple of them over here that are smaller, but then the rest, I think this is fair in terms of size. And what I want to do over here is start designing something for the pillars, right? This is the number one thing that I want to start designing, because the pillars and the trims, at least one trim, I can use to start testing my modular kit inside a Cinema 4D, right? So what I usually start by doing is just Q-mesh this little guy and I split that little strip over there real quick. So split hidden, and now I have this other split part of the mesh. I'm gonna delete this one is not needed. And then I can Q-mesh it back, and you can see it's reversed the normals. So I just gotta go to, whoops, not double. Gotta go to display properties all the way down here and flip the normals. See that? Flipping the normals. And now we have this little section over here. And this means that I can use live booleans now, and in order to tile it. Now, it is a good idea for me to actually think, how is this tileable per se, right? So I'm gonna actually duplicate this guy. I'm gonna go to array mesh, and I'm gonna array lock position, lock size, and now I'm gonna switch this to a cube. And I'm just gonna practice this with a cube. I'm gonna make a couple of strips with a bit of the same sort of proportion, around the same proportion that I want for my final model. And now once that is done, let's say I'm gonna do this a little thinner, push it out a little bit, and now I'm gonna check my pivot, which seems to be okay. So I'm gonna move it all the way back here. Actually, I'm gonna move the actual model all the way over there, right? And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move it, I'm gonna move it down by 2. And then I'm gonna append a new one, and I'm gonna move it up by -2. And now we have this over here. And we're gonna check the tiling, see if it tiles correctly, and if it looks nice on the overall plane. If it does, then this is working on that little section, because again, it's divided, right? So it will tile up and down as well, which is what I want. I want to cut 1 meter sections in my little pillar over here. I want to go over here, and I want to look at this pillar and see that it's 800 centimeters. Every 100 centimeters, I'm going to have a seam cut. And then I'm just going to overlap the sections and make sure they're tileable. And that's it. That's just overlapping UV shells. So I'm going to basically go and append a new one. And I'm going to X amount, I don't know, by like 2 as well. Actually, not 2, but by 1. And make sure that these are tileable now. They're locked in terms of size and position, meaning that I can now start using, for example, my little deformer. Or actually, I can duplicate this. Do 0.25, sorry, 0.25, like that. Come on. There we go. And now what I can do is I can tap that and use a deformer. I think a deformer won't work with, will it? Let me see, deformer hard. Oh, it does, perfectly. It respects masking. And now if it respects masking, that means I can go ahead and move this all the way over there. Flip this selection. And actually, I think this works. One of the things I want to do is I want to move this all the way over there. Actually, before I even do any of this, let me just delete those edges. I want to make sure that these are as simple as I can. So I'm going to go again, delete loops, and now make sure that these tile, right? So first thing I want to do, mask that, and I want to make sure that they are offset by like 0.05 or something like this, right? And then I want to actually flip this. Okay, make sure they're maybe something like that. Doesn't need to be perfect. And I want to make sure I'm masking this off. There we go. Whoops. It's the opposite way. Let's see. So, yep, that one goes over there. There we go. Should tile nicely to that one. And then that one over there. Whoops. That one will go over there. It looks like an X. I don't know if I like this. Let's see. It looks too obvious. It looks too thin as well. Too thick, sorry. So I'm gonna go back, move this a little bit. Actually, I want to append. Let me see if I can append another stage here. Let me just append another stage. Insert another stage. Yep, this is good. And I want to make sure I offset this by 0.25. or 0.5 actually, 0.5. And then I want to make sure that I'm scaling this down. Gonna delete hidden. There we go. And maybe I want to repeat this like 4 times. There we go. Perfect. And now all I need to do is actually move these so they're overlapping, slightly overlapping, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and make sure that they're like this. I want to make it like a little bit like a weaving pattern. So it'd be actually I should make mesh. I should go and auto group, and now do the same. Actually, I want to delete these. I think these 2 are fine for now. So delete hidden. And the second stage, the third stage actually, should be 0.25 or 0.5. And I want to make sure I add maybe like 5 repetitions. And I'm going to use my transpose line just because it's easier. I'm going to make sure that these are 2. There we go. That's 2. And I want to make sure that these are 6. Also, what I could do is just use micro poly for a lot of this, right? I could just go ahead and do a little micro poly pattern like I did before for that weaving pattern. So if I go, for example, let's go to display in 3D, make polymesh 3D, and I go to micro poly, go to geometry, dynamic subdivision, and turn on micro poly. I need to select a mesh. I can select any of these meshes to replace the current topology that I have, right? No, micro poly. Micro poly is a good idea over here, just because it looks at the actual geometry, and it needs to be tileable in order for it to work. So what I want to do is I want to go to weave, any sort of weaving pattern like this, right? And what I can even do is I can turn off this, go to my delete loops and delete all these loops, and then turn on micro poly again, and now we get this little thing, this little guy over here. The problem is I want this to be spiraling. So let's see if we have any sort of spiraling, overlapping pattern. We don't, which is a shame. But I mean, this could be a good foundation for us, right? So now if I click apply the dynamic, this is actual geometry. And that means that I can go and change this to like a polycube, for example. Change this from, I want this to be very, very basic. I want it to be that same exact size, or sorta. Like that. I want to make sure that it's over there. I want to make sure it's like this. And it is tiling on the same axis, which is interesting. Let me see if I can find that that reference that I had. Bada bing, bada boom. Boom. I can't find that reference, which is a shame. Where did I have this? Let's see. Let me drink some more ZBrush tea. Maybe that's what's missing. So, medieval. I had it on a medieval pillar section thing. There we go. See if I can find it real quick, so I don't bore you guys to death. Not showing. This is the wrong one. This is not it. Why didn't I save my the pin. God dang it. So it goes a little bit on a spiral, which is eventually what we want to achieve. What very crude spiraling pattern. So here's what we're gonna do. We can actually just do something like this. Like that. And then just duplicate this. Let me just duplicate and merge. Down. And now let's do, yeah, okay. So now I can, whoops, a daisy. Let me do auto groups. And rotate this in an X pattern, let's say. And I want to actually add a little bit of an edge loop right there. Whoops, right there in the middle, like so. And now I'm gonna mask this, mask that, and now I'm gonna move it up like that, right? But it's still an X, right? So what we want to do is then just compress this and duplicate them and have two of them in a repeating pattern. So after we've done this, which shouldn't be too hard, we want to make sure that we have maybe I'm overcomplicating it. I'm probably overcomplicating it. Let me think. If not, we can just go with a generic spiral and be done with it. Yeah, let's just go with a generic spiral. Why not? Let me just go back to our trim. Not this. This is not our trim. This is our trim. And I'm just gonna go ahead and do a little bit of skewing. Maybe that's too much. Maybe we want something more like that. Maybe something more like that. This is not perfectly tileable, so let me actually see if I can move, go to deformation and say offset in the X. There we go. Oh, it doesn't allow for even values, right? So 0.5. There we go. Perfect value. And now we want to make sure that our array is set properly, so we can actually preview this, right? So this would be that, which is great. And this would be 8. And this is our pattern in essence, right? And you can see how it actually tiles to both sides. See that? It actually tiles. If it does it, we're just gonna fix that after the fact. So now I'm gonna Z model this, Z modeler, and I'm gonna actually make sure that this is, let's say, whoops, it's masked. I'm gonna do something like that, something like that. I'm gonna bevel this. Whoops, bevel that. It's something like that. Tap to repeat. And now I'm going to Q mesh, polygroup, and flat. Where's polygroup? Flat. Polygroup. Flat and polygroup. There you go. And I'm going to do that. Something like this. And then tap that. And now I'm going to go over here and delete that edge loop. If I can. I can't. That's wonderful. So I'm gonna go. No, this is a bevel. Whoops. Delete that. Delete that. And same thing goes for this one over here. And we have a little bit of a bevel. Now, what we can do over here is, because we have this, this is too flat for my taste, so I'm gonna dynamic subdivide over here and crease it based on angle. So you get a little bit of some roundness going on over here. And most of this detail is going to be sculpted anyway. I'm going to use wrap mode along this curve. This is why I made 2 of them. And then it's just repeating using the array. But what I wanted to do is actually explore a little bit of this. So I'm going to go ahead and Q mesh. Actually, not Q mesh. I'm going to delete this edge. Delete this single poly. I have some presets over here. And then I'm going to go and close or bridge actually 2 edges. And I'm going to bridge this one and that one. But there's no interactivity, right? So I'm going to close. Is it close? No, close doesn't work. And it works with 2 holes, not this. So what I can do is actually insert edge loop, multiple edge loop, interactive elevation, do not crease, and just do, whoops, interactive resolution as well. Make sure that this is like that. Let's look at from the side. So it'd be something like that, right? Where we have a little bit of elevation, like so. And then, and maybe before I even do that, I know my brain is just not working properly today, I guess. And just go ahead and delete those. I think everything is deleted properly. Actually, this is why this isn't working probably. Deleting that edge loop. And now select that. Delete hidden. Same thing goes on the bottom. Delete hidden. Whoops. There we go. Delete hidden. And now if I go ahead and do bridge, no, it just doesn't work like that. That's the key issue. Delete that. Delete that. And we don't have a clean edge anymore like that, right? So I'm gonna go like this. Whoops. Like that. Come on. And it cleans it. Same thing goes. Should happen over here. There you go. Perfect. And now I'm gonna go and insert that edge loop around over there. And then just tap over here to repeat that. And you can see it's not really tileable because this is wrong over here, right? But we can delete that after the fact. We could just go ahead with our clip curve brush, make sure we match this precisely, and we're good to go. Same thing goes over here, all the way over here. Boom. We got a little bit of that working. Yeah, that's working perfectly. Could also just use brushes to do that. Now because we have this, we have to crease it again. And we have this little pattern. Now what I'm gonna do, let me just go ahead and pull up the chat real quick. Real fast, real quick. So I can have it here on my side. Camera is frozen. That's good. That's good. That's good that I missed that. Look at that. The stream video is frozen, but your audio hasn't. Is the stream actually frozen? Like completely? Huh. That is interesting. Is the actual stream frozen? Can you guys see? Ah, okay. I thought you weren't seeing what I was doing in ZBrush. That would be a little bit tragic. And now we're gonna go ahead and do a little bit of some sculpting here. Let's do a little bit of insert over there. And now we want to make sure that this is Q meshed over here. So I'm gonna go and go to my face, go Q mesh and single poly, and bada bing, bada boom. And it's welded, I hope. There we go. And now we're gonna insert that multiple edge loop over here. Actually, now I don't want elevation, so I'm gonna make sure that I insert single, and I'm gonna snap it to the middle. There we go. And now looking again at my reference. There it is. It's a good image, actually, of a filled pillars. Got this. Close. Crap. Okay, there we go. I need to go back because this freaking thing is not allowing me to. There we go. Okay. Pure ref to the rescue. Right. So now that we have something like this, and we're going to basically want to make sure that this is sort of concave here. So I'm going to actually close this off by doing this. Whoops. By doing this. And then just tapping on that face over there. And crease. And now I want to make sure that I have this right. So I'm gonna go and insert multiple with keep poly group, interactive elevation, interactive resolution, and I want to make sure that it's dipping in like that. Again, this part doesn't really matter. And to be honest, I would no, that's fine. We can just mask this off and push it up anyway. Right, so now that we have this, which is doing that, basically, I want to make sure I Q mesh this to the same extent and crease it. And it's obviously Q meshing the wrong way. So what I'm gonna do, mask lasso thing over here by using, whoops, by using control. There we go. And clipping that till they match. Same thing goes over here. Mask that whole area off. Snap that pivot over there, actually over here. Reset the pivot and then hold control to move them and clip them. And now I'm pretty sure that this is where we're at currently, right? So this is sort of like the pattern around a spiral pillar, right? And you want to make this spiralness here, or you want to make sure that you have a trim that is tiling up and down, and then you use the topology itself to maybe make it spiral or something, which is, it's smart technically because you can reuse that trim everywhere. And actually that should have been the way we went for it, but that's okay. Doesn't really matter. We're doing this this way. So once we do this, what I want to make sure is that this is incorrect, but it doesn't matter. As long as it tiles nicely side to side, and we're going to sculpt this anyway. So now other little details over here that we want to make sure that we are getting. So can we make something with an IMM brush? Let's go to an IMM over here. IMM primitives, maybe, there we go. Insert cylinder. And I want to insert a cylinder right over there. And I want to reset this like that. And then I want to make sure that I've snapped to that. Rotate it around 180 degrees, and then just scale it. Scale it. scale it like that until you're way over. And we can obviously just use our clip curve over here. And actually this probably won't work because it's not aligned, which is ein problem. So let me see. I'm gonna snap this. I'm actually gonna insert a little bit of some edge loops over here. No elevation. I don't want any elevation. So insert a couple of edge loops like so. Using my gizmo, I'm gonna Alt and snap it all the way over there. Make sure I'm on this point over here. Go back to my IMM and just go ahead and, well, let me just duplicate this real quick. Duplicate this, and now just switch it. And obviously I got the angle wrong. It should have been the other way, like 90. And now I can scale it up like so, scale it down like so, and I can even now, whoops, I can actually move it, whoops, move this over here so it's below that, reset that pivot, duplicate it to this side, doesn't need to be perfect, and I'll duplicate it over there, let go of control, and bada bing bada boom. We've got a bit of a detail going. This would be something like that, right? Let's say we have something like this. And also what I want to do as well is I want to make sure that I am giving it a little bit of a gap there. So I'm gonna be slicing this problem. And we have a little bit of leeway here when we sculpt, so we're good. Same thing goes over here. So I'm gonna go clip these. Actually, instead of clipping, I might just do a knife. And just knife it like that, and knife it like that. And now that we have something like this, if we array, this is our pattern currently. 1 meter tall, and we could actually make it a little thicker over here and less thick over there, but I'm guessing it's fine, to be honest. I can trim this when we sculpt. So coolio, that means that if I keep this orientation, at least I can make sure that this is tileable. So I'm gonna actually make mesh, make mesh, make mesh, and now I'm gonna go and shoot it over to our trim. Actually, it's already over here, which is perfect. So now I'm gonna use a group, insert a little folder. I like using groups. So intersect, and it should. Oh, live boolean's off, of course. I am stupid. There we go. And the same thing goes for the other little tool. And this is now tileable. And the benefit of this is that I can come over here to this one, or actually to this one, and I can sculpt it, right? I can go Control W, I can go and Dynamesh this, I can apply the subdivisions, I can go and apply the dynamic subdivisions, divide it one more time, and even one more time. this creased? Yep, that was creased. Look at that. We just figured that out. So we can uncrease all and then crease based on that angle, which means we're getting apply, go and divide one more time, and now we can delete lower and Dynamesh this. And as you can see, we only need 200. Oh Jesus, that's bad. That's bad, okay. Low resolution is bad, okay. There we go. More tea. Is it too much? No, it's actually perfect. Because we're obeying this plane 3D's proportions, that means I can go Damien standard, turn on wrap mode, and that means that if I go over, whoops, if I go over there, it's too super slow. Why is it super slow? Because live boolean is on? That is very, very interesting. Why is it dragging its feet with 11 million? Let me see. Do I have a dynamic subdivision? Turn on again? No. There's no dynamic. But it's literally dragging its feet. I have Sculptors Pro on? No. Let's see clay buildup. Huh? It's dragging. Don't really understand why. Let's do this on here. This is not dragging its feet. This is 11 million, which shouldn't be too much. Yeah. It's not that. I've just checked it. It's not dynamic subdivision on in here. Maybe I have too much resolution. I don't know. That's strange. Let's see. Huh, that's interesting. It shouldn't happen. It shouldn't be dragging its feet over. Well, to be honest, we don't even need this section over here. We just need a near where it's tiling, which is near that little cube over there. So we need it over here more than anything. So we can get rid already of like half of the topology. Same thing goes over here. Oops. Need this. And now I can start sculpting. And one of the things I can do in wrap mode is sculpt every directional that it tiles, right? Basically wrapping the strokes. So I should have sculpted on a single one, but for the sake of our little example here, I'm going to do this. I can actually knife this as well. This is still not applied. No, that's fine. You can just delete those. Just go ahead and delete. Go to array mesh. Delete that stage. So delete this one. Whoops. Delete this one. Delete that one. Nope. Delete. There we go. Now we have this this section over here. So then this is our first trim. This is a base of our first trim. It's going to be for tileable, sort of like spiraling pillar. No, array is not turned on. What are you talking about? What music? You're hearing things. You're hearing things. There's no music, actually. I turned it off. See, I can be a troll too. Yeah, I was asking that before. So you guys need to give me feedback on that. Let me see. So I can actually lower that for you guys. There we go. I mean, I am not speaking too much on this stream, to be honest. Like this? Is this fine? You guys let me know. This ain't working for me. It's okay. I'll figure this out later. So the next section is going to be these trims over here. And I have a little bit of an idea of what I want to build for that section. So I'm going to do a very, very simplistic kind of shape. So I'm going to go ahead and do it on a separate plane, not this one. Maybe this is the rock thing that I was sculpting, but I guess I can just get rid of this. So I'm gonna actually start with a plane 3D, and I don't know why this initialize is always like so high. Whoops. For me, I want this to start with no edges like that. So now that I have this, what I can do is start designing a shape and then just use that with VDMs across the surface. So I'm gonna actually start creating ornamental patterns. One cool idea I had was to insert a little cube over here, and we're gonna go like this. We can actually just replace this with this cube because I prefer the little cube. And bada bing bada boom. What I can do is I can actually just scale this down and do a little bit of some Z modeling over here. I'm gonna go inset. Actually, let me do inset polygroup flat. Let's see if that changes. Actually, it doesn't, but this does. Okay, there we go. There we go. Go Q mesh, and we have this going on over here. So what I want to do is I want to block out a shape, a design that is very, very common in Romanesque kind of trims, which is kind of like MC Escher-ish, you know what I mean? So technically, I wouldn't even start like this. I'm gonna start like that. And guys, this messes my brain up, a lot of these patterns, just because my dyslexia kind of doesn't like me doing crazy stuff like this. So I'm gonna actually try to copy this. Go ahead and insert, not multiple. I want this to be set at single, so I'm gonna go like that. This doesn't need to be perfect. I just want to make sure that I have the tiling correct. That, whoops. And then do that. So this would be going over there, making sure that this is not snapping. There we go. That's free form. I could actually just get rid of that, to be honest. Get rid of the other polygroups. So I'm gonna go like this and just delete hidden. And now I can extrude. And I want to make sure it's planar, parallel sides. So now I can do this, right? Bada bing, bada boom. And I can actually save a preset here. I'm going to save it to extrude flat. Save. And now I can go ahead and use my presets. I can go insert single, you know, insert extrude, and I can go insert single, insert it, and then change it to extrude flat. That's that easy, right? So I'm gonna go like that, and then insert single, extrude flat, and insert single, extrude flat, like that. Look at that, that's gorgeous. And then again, insert single, extrude flat, and now insert single, extrude flat. This should be, whoops, I didn't actually change extrude flat. Be something like that. So now I know that this one, I want this to overlap this in some way and make sure that these are over the top. So what I can do is I can extrude this, whoops, just like that. And I want to make sure that this is a separate polygroup, just so I know that I can select those fairly quickly. If I select that polygon, like so, those polygons are gonna tile. That's what I need to know, right? And how is this gonna work? I can actually just select this and extrude by holding Control. And then just moving this up like so. And then I can select that again. Hold Control, tap. Control drag. Whoops. This is the wrong way to go about it, actually. Why is it not? Because it's doing that. That's strange. Okay. So I'm gonna just do this. This is gonna be, I don't want it to snap. Why is it snapping? Let me see over here. Don't force symmetrical, smart attraction, no attraction. I don't want any attraction. No snap to surface as well, which we could do as well. And I want to make sure I save this. Actually, forget about it. I'm just gonna do that. And let me check. Change this back to my insert single, and then extrude flat. This would be our, whoops, our little section over here. You're gonna see where I'm going with this. You're gonna see where I'm going with this. And the same thing goes over here. Make sure that my pivot is over there. And scale it into position. So I can preview this with dynamic thickness, and you're going to see where I'm going with this. So I can go dynamic, do a little bit of thickness, just a little bit of thickness, and do something like that. And a little bit of thickness. Actually, we want post, but we want a lot more subdivisions over here. That corner is gonna annoy the heck out of me. That doesn't matter. All I need is a little preview. Actually, I don't need smooth subdivisions. I need flat subdivisions. Like one flat subdivision is enough. And I can offset it to the bottom. So now if I turn it on and off, I just see how they overlap, right? And without this overlap, I can actually go like this. Extrude it over here. Move it down a little bit, and you can see I can see it now with the thickness. I can grow my mask, which is a new feature. I can go over here to masking, Grow mask a little bit. Actually, I could grow all and shrink all. This is what I want to do. And then sharpen mask. Whoops. And then just scale it like so. The mask is not 100% sharp, so. But I mean, it's fine. It's probably gonna have to be something a little different. We're gonna have to deselect these, deselect these, deselect these. And now we're gonna do Control W, Control Shift X to expand. And I wanna make sure that these are their own, they're flatter, like so. Which actually technically it's not correct. This could be like that. And I want to mask this section. And I want to scale it up. Something like that. Right? It would be something like this. Now, the true crux of it comes with this little guy. If I go over here and I actually select this, and I'm gonna let me select this one and expand. Something like that. This guy could go a little bit higher. This would mean that we get a little bit of a pattern like this. And you can see already where I'm going with this. Can't you? So if you can't, whoops, local dynamic symmetry. Whoops, the other way around. So rotate that gizmo. That's how simple it is with dynamic symmetry. Mirror and weld, and there we go. And you can see already as well what I mean by using this to your benefit. So mirror and weld, and we get a tileable little trim. Just with ZModeler, guys. This is only ZModeler. And then what we can do is we can actually start sculpting the little ornaments, the flowery bits, and all that stuff, right? I'm not sure I like this being here. Let's try this over here, like so, right? But what we can do is actually make this tileable, right? We could just make a pattern with a ray and then just sculpt it. Or we could turn it into an alpha and use roll, right? And we could just sculpt it like that. I would much rather have this as an actual geometry and be separated like actual geometry. The problem is that this gap is too big. So what I'm gonna do is make sure that, whoops, make sure that this section over here, come on. Actually, I could just use the mask rectangular like that and move it up. Just because then in the alpha, if I just go over here and apply this dynamic subdivision, right? And now I want to add more dynamic subdivisions, but I want to have no thickness, and I want to have smooth subdivisions, and then I want to crease based on angle. Increase that smooth, decrease that crease. Decrease, get it? Just decrease it, guys. So now, actually, before I even apply that thickness, I'm gonna change this topology a little bit. I'm gonna go with my ZModeler, and I'm gonna slice the mesh, or I could even go ZS. There's literally a slicing brush that just allows you to do stuff like this. It's kind of like your knife brush or your multi-cut in Maya, right? So this is stuff that most people don't even know it's there. To my shame, that they don't know, because it's like, come on, guys, it's been there for a while. You don't need to leave ZBrush to make a cut. and then come back to ZBrush and pursue, you know, like that 0.01% of the process shouldn't be the reason you leave a particular application, especially if you're in a big production pipeline and you don't have there's some issues over there. Whatever, it's probably rendering. I mean, bada boom, bada bing. Every little corner. Actually, I could just stitch this as well. Just collapse the edges. This could be easier, technically, but it's fine. I don't want to mess too much with that, so I'm gonna slice the mesh. Why ain't this working? There we go. There we go. I press the spacebar just to reset my selection, otherwise it keeps cutting through the mesh. There we go. Actually, I could just go snap that pivot again, mirror and weld, boom, done. Right, and now that I have this thickness, I'm gonna apply that thickness, create another one, reduce the thickness, increase the smooth, and uncrease all, increase, and there we go. Got a little bit of a sharper, oh, I forgot that one. I forgot this one. So I'm gonna do it again. Nope, that is wrong. Like this, like that. There we go. And now I can just mirror and weld again. That one as well, I forgot. Of course I'm forgetting stuff. Weld, increase all, crease, and we have our little guys here, right? And we can reduce that crease level so it's a little more natural, a little more organic, just a tad. And then we can even add the edge loop single, add a few here and there where we think actually matters. We can add just on one side. Whoops. Like that. Like that. And like that. And now mirror and weld again. Got a little bit of a sharper edge there. And maybe another subdivision, smooth subdivision. And there we go. And we have our little pattern working. And again, let me see if I can get this shape to work a little better. I'm gonna go and select a section over here. Really don't like how this is going. I want this to be, you know, to have that silhouette over there. Maybe I want this as well. Whoops. What the hell? Why is it not shrinking? Shift S. That is very strange. What the heck happened? Yeah, because I have thickness. Okay. So I'm gonna select that. Shrink. Yep, it just shrinks to the poly because there's no that. There we go. That's that entire section. Now make sure that this is, whoops. God dang it. I always keep forgetting something. something like that. There we go. I can just easily delete this and insert another one over there. And snap that pivot over there. Reverse. And mirrored weld. Much better. I'm liking this much better now. And now, because I want to make sure that this is tileable, I'm gonna see and check if this works with a standard brush. Go and grab the document. That alpha is too harsh in contrast, but let's check. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to my trim sheet over here, and I'm gonna go to this one. There we go. Live Boolean on always interferes with this, so I'm gonna go Z Modeler, Q Mesh, single poly, and then select that one. And I'm gonna split hidden. And I want to make sure that that little trim, I believe that little trim has a little bit of thickness, and it could have a little bit of width to that as well. And I'm gonna make sure that I have enough Dynamesh resolution. There we go. And now we're gonna test this. Standard. Make sure tiling is wrap mode is on. So I'm gonna go and turn on wrap mode. Wrap mode, by the way, is under brush, create, not create, sorry, curve, and turn on wrap mode to at least 1. So then when you actually go ahead and drag this, it tiles it, right? So I'm gonna actually reduce my focal shift. So it does this little thing. I'm gonna go and tweak my alpha. I don't need to tweak the mesh for this. I can actually go ahead and go to modify and blur it just ever so slightly. Do a little bit of max. I want the mid value, actually do surface and change that mid value again. Go back over here, not to brush, sorry, alpha. And I want to make sure that my mid value is at 0. And now we have a flatter version of that. We could even be a little bit less intense. Maybe not that much. Something like this, right? Not enough res though. So I'm gonna need at least like 2 million polygons. Smooth it out, remesh it, re-dynamesh in our case. And we're gonna go and do 2 million today. Fish scales, detail, or use IMM and nanomesh. I would definitely use nanomesh and IMM. You could also use VDM brushes. Make your own fish scale VDM. Store a morph target, and as you're sculpting that, it doesn't. There's no overlapping scales basically. If you store a morph target in your original flat topology, the scales won't overlap. You know what I mean? So you're gonna get nice little scales. So that is the benefit of VDMs as well. But and you can have as much detail as you want in our VDM. So VDM for more detailed approach and maybe create a collection of scale patterns using VDMs, or start with the fish scales as a single mesh, IMM, and nanomesh. Depends on what you're doing, right? If I was gonna do it for 3D printing, let's say I wanna have the scales to be a certain thickness and I wanna make sure I control every single scale, I could use a nanomesh for that. But again, god damn it, this camera. Hi. Why is this camera always freezing? I have no clue. It's always happening. Sometimes it stops happening for some reason, but whatever. So, if we do this, we get a tiling pattern, which, why is there that little lip over there? Let me check. Oh, got it wrong again. This one, Not this one. There it is. Why is that little lip over there? That's very, very strange. It's not in the alpha. Well, it is in the alpha. That's interesting. Is it because I have this plane? I go over here and do grab dock. Let's go test it out again. Yeah, it's clean now. Interesting. Yeah, it's cleaner. So the intensity down. And if we increase that wrap mode, you can do stuff like this, like combinations of that pattern. Maybe this is too much. I'm gonna go for 2. And I can actually, instead of drag rect, I'm gonna do drag dot. Whoops, bigger brush. No lazy mouse. Actually, I don't want drag dot. Drag rect was working for me, to be honest. Drag rect. But that is not enough. So wrap mode 3. Something like that. We can always expand on this further. So let me see. It actually is working pretty nice. I'm gonna actually go ahead and this is not centered though. It's giving me a headache. Hold shift. There we go. We have a little bit of a pattern here going. Some stone patterns. And what we can do now is we can start sculpting the little floral things. And the floral, this is actually leading up to your question, where you're talking about VDMs. What you can do over here is that you can go ahead and start tileable textures inside a ZBrush. Yes, tileable textures inside a ZBrush. That's exactly what I always do. Every single tileable texture I make starts with ZBrush. So not every single one of them. Sometimes I use Designer, but for most of the stuff like organic-ish patterns, then ZBrush for sure. So let's actually just make Polymesh 3D over here. I'm gonna divide this a bunch of times without a smooth because I don't want to change those borders. Divide it to like 1,000,000. And what I'm gonna do first and foremost is store a morph target. I'm going to store a morph target over here, and I'm going to use my scribe chisel brush. And what this does, it generates a curve and it does this, right? So then I can tap and I can keep designing like whoops, little strokes like that. And because I have a morph target, look at that, they don't overlap. Which is my point when you're using a VDM brush or any alpha brush, actually. If you have a morph target of your original topology, you can't change the topology after you store a morph target. Don't re-dynamesh. Just turn off dynamesh. You don't create more subdivisions, whatever. Just stay to the same topology. But then it actually is pretty neat because it goes and does this overlapping sort of thing. Now, one of the cool things we can do for this is that we can go ahead and do, for example, a trim hole. Let's go trim hole, and I'm gonna start with maybe a little bit of a hole like that, and then go scribe chisel. And the scribe chisel is actually the one that's gonna, see, dip into that. So what I can do is I can maybe select a different one. I'm gonna select maybe this. It's a little thicker. I can do a little bit of this, see, something like that. But I actually want a different alpha. Let's see if I can find a cool one. This is the perfect one, actually. And I want to make sure I do, this is probably too thick. I want to make sure that I do this, and then I go to stroke, curve modifiers. Actually, not in stroke, it's under brush, modifiers, and I want to make sure that resolution, curve res, is set to 2. So now if I do this, I have that resolution, right? So let's look at reference. Nothing better than reference. Floral patterns or pseudo floral patterns. Yeah, we're probably gonna need some sort of pattern like this. Let's see. Let's do a symmetrical one first. So let's do trim hole, store morph target, because for some reason it got rid of it. Gonna do a little bit of something like that. Scribe chisel, make it smaller. And don't like this. It's not round enough, so I'm gonna actually increase that resolution a little bit. Again, guys, you can just move this as a curve, right, as well. This is the point of this brush. It allows you flexibility. So I'm gonna go and look at my reference. It should be something. Actually, let me change that curve. I wanna make sure that it basically decays. Zero curve, where's the curve thing? Ah, there it is. Curve fall off. And I want to make sure that I'm doing this. So now it does something like that, right? It's a little more what we want. We want to do. I still don't like that. I don't know. I see. I don't like this. So let me do it one at a time. Let's do like that. And then I'm gonna go like that. Ah, come on, this doesn't work like that. This brush doesn't work like that. So I'm gonna do maybe something like that. And now I want to do the same thing, but over here. Be a little thicker, actually. And maybe focal shift that towards like that. Okay, so this would be more of a leaf kind of design. Be something like this. Now I want to make sure that this is bigger. Whoops. This is too big. There we go. This is probably enough. Guys, get used to this. Life of the artist. Remaking the same stroke 20 freaking times. So, maybe a little smaller. Yeah, this kind of works for what I want to show. Now, over here, we want to make sure that it's a little thicker. Just do a single one right in the middle. Maybe even bigger. Maybe I can go like that. The problem is this intensity, right? I can decrease that intensity. Maybe that's too much. I'm gonna decrease to like 70. And actually I don't want this to change that intensity. I want this to be flat. Do I want this to be flat? No, intensity is a must. And this is how iterative this can be, right? So I can go like that. Maybe like this. Focal shift should be set at 0 again. Maybe something like that. This is too intense though. A lot of these strokes are too intense. But I mean, you get the point, right? So you have something like that, and I want to make sure that this is a little smaller actually. And then I'm gonna make, nope, not working. Get a little bigger. I don't know. This is a weird design, guys. So I'm gonna do smaller strokes. No, don't like this. Like that. And like that. I don't know. I don't know what the heck I'm doing, guys. I'm just having fun, I guess. Maybe a little smaller. And have something like that appear out of the blue for some reason. Nope. Not like that. And we can go and do a trim hole again. Looks like a mouth. Guy's impressed. And do we need any of this? Yeah, it doesn't really matter. So I can do... Whoops. As long as I move any point here, this will create a little bit of a deformation with our VDM, right? So my point is that I want to make sure that this is a little flatter. And also I can make sure that this is planar. So if I do this, then I get a cut like that, which might not be what I want, which is probably not what I want. I want to do this. Whoa, that's kind of crazy. So let me make sure I cap this off over here. I need to trim front, probably trim front. Just cap it off like that, right? And then I can sculpt that. So I can go trim dynamic with that and then just start, you know, sculpting that shape. Now, the idea is that because the topology hasn't changed, ZBrush knows how the deformation is going to work from point to point. So this is how a VDM works, right? And I can actually move back and say, okay, whoops, maybe that was too much. Something like that, right? And let me do planar over here. And I'm going to do a little planar over here as well. Maybe I can do that. A little trick over there, maybe not. Maybe I want to make sure that this only affects that area. Area over here. But I want to make sure that this is smoothed out. Something like this, right? So it's not super harsh, like you're gonna smooth out that surface a little bit. And maybe even more. Let's do an overall smoothing pass and then press one key. Maybe that's too much. Something like that, right? Obviously, this looks like a freaking pineapple. It's not designed. It's not looking at particular reference or anything. But then you could design it like you wish. There's no limit to that. I just want to do a little bit of smoothing on those edges a little bit. And over here. There you go. So now what you want to do is you want to go to brush and you want to select any VDM brush. In my case, I don't care about this as much. So I'm going to go over here. And I'm going to go to alpha. Actually, not alpha. Go to brush. Create a multi-alpha brush. And it's going to create an alpha brush with this, right? And if I have this intensity set, I can start, obviously I have rep mode on, but I can start doing something like that. And because if I go to my trim over here, and this is the point I want to come across, like if I want to go and start designing with rep mode as set at 3, I think. Do something like that. Actually, let me do this right like that. And now I want to go and morph brush, and I can start just deleting certain sections like that. And the morph brush, ideally same rep mode. Morph everything back. I want focal shift down to minus 100. So I can be super precise with this. There we go. And I'm just morphing back that information. Right? Morphing everything back in time. Then we can start designing. Obviously this looks like a pineapple. This is not my best work in terms of designing of ornaments at all. But you get the point, right? The idea is that you can start designing your own little sections. I had a whole collection of those done for a former VDM brush. Actually, I think I still have it. So if I go over here, I have my own brushes, I think. Over here, let's go. The brushes. Did I save that ornament brush? Let's find out. Brush are no ornaments. Oh, there it is. There's my ornament brush. There we go. I actually put it in the starting folder, which is not ideal. But the idea is that wrap mode set to 3, and I can just go a little nuts on this. So you can see how much better this VDM is compared to the others. I can do stuff like that. Actually, I could make it a little smaller. Something like that, right? And we could do, oops. I don't know, some crazy ornamentations here. This is too intense. And I have another one over here, which is also one of my favorites, but it needs to be reversed for some reason. The idea for this was that it was tiling. It was for a cannon that I built, so I'm gonna do that one. Yeah, that one works a little better. It's just weird floral strokes, as you can see, and they work pretty well. And then you start designing that ornament and sculpt, and that's it. And you got your trim sheet. All right, guys, I gotta be going, unfortunately, in the next 2 minutes, so I won't delay you guys anymore. I'm gonna keep working on this, obviously, and we're gonna come back to this. We're gonna keep building this little kit that we're building in cinema, and basically, building this little kit, and it's stream sheets, it's tileable textures, and we wanna, this is the level of quality we're aiming for over here. in terms of like the granularity of the sculpting detail. Most of the other detail, like let's say the added tertiary or micro detail to this is going to be added on either in Substance or in the engine. So this is more of like the base normal map and displacement map that I wanna capture out of this type of stuff. Obviously for displacement, for nanite, for all the other things, right? So I hope you guys enjoyed it. It was a much chiller, let's say calm stream than the others that we've been doing throughout the year. In case you guys have any questions, you guys know where to find me. You guys know where my socials are at. If you don't, then you should have. Just find me on Instagram or whatever. If I go to my start screen after this, you have the QR code there for the free trial and ZBrush for iPad, the free version, which is a fully featured ZBrush to a certain point. There's some limitations, obviously, but it is fully featured ZBrush. There's a ton of brushes. Has most of the features like Dynamesh, ZRemesh are there. So just go try it out if you have an iPad. In case you want to follow me on socials, after I let you guys go, I'm going to put my starting screen here, and it will have a QR code that you guys can scan and make sure that you are in the loop of whatever I'm doing. And then you can ask me questions as well. All right, everyone. I'll see you guys in the next one. Environment Art Workshop, and this is Rodolfo Silva with ZBT for ZBrush T, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.